The Pula Anvil. Let's talk about it. Now this is a 4BA, one dynamic driver, one bone conductor driver IEM that has been sent out to me by Hifigo to review. This has a lot of great qualities and it is a solid pick for people that want a bone conductor driver. But before we get too deep in the review, let's look at the build quality and then we'll talk about the sound and all those great lovely things. Now the shell of this IEM is massive. It just is a giant compared to the little tiny baby Afu Magic 1. It is a large shell, but it's a nice shell. It kind of feels hollow and sort of ping-pongy inside. That's something we'll talk about later. But you'll notice it's a big shell with a nice metal nozzle and metal grate. It is a flat 2-pin cable connector. It has a nice little lip. It sits in my ear really quite well. I love the style of this faceplate, and I think they did a fantastic job with this, but it is large, and that is something to note. Okay, I absolutely love this case. It's the same as the Cantor. I have 3 of these cases now. I actually bought one of these cases a few weeks ago before the sample came in when they came available on the Pula store. It's a fantastic case and I love it so much. Now the cable has all 3 major connections, a 4-4, a 3-5, and a 2-5 for those that might want it. It's a straight pin cable connector. It's not too bad to change out, and I like this cable a great deal. It has a beautiful Y split, a nice little chin slider that's difficult to move, and so it stays in place really well. It's not too fancy, but it's a nice cable at this price point and no major faults with it. Here you can see the right-left connectors. They're kind of in faint white, but they're there, and it's a nice flat 2-pin cable connector. There are also a plethora of tips, and there's a great selection of tips overall. I'm very pleased with it. Now, this IEM sounds resolute, clear, and it has a fun sound, but it's a unique tune. It sounds much different than it graphs, and it has some quirks and some qualities about it that I wanted to bring up to you guys and talk about it. It's a solid pick, and I think people are going to like it, but I don't think everybody will like it. And so I'm kind of wanted to talk about some of my hesitations here in the graph section. Okay, let's look at the graph. The main things I want to show you, it kind of has that warm style tuning, which we'll show you here in a little bit. Has kind of a little bit of a lacking of a treble, which I think it's trying to do some things, and has quite a bit of energy around here and can kind of come across a little bit sibilant and harsh on my ears. Let's look at some other graphs and kind of see how this sort of compares, and this does a lot of things very well. Now, the first one I wanted to show you is the Pula PA02. I think for people that are really big fans of the Pula, you might have some different and unique peaks. Like you can tell there's a ton more energy at 8K, which can come across as very detailed, but could be a little bit bad for people. The Pula has some really nice air and extension right around 15K, where the Anvil kind of doesn't. I think the Pula PA02 has a little bit of better mids and has a little bit more of a gradual bass rise, which I honestly prefer. That doesn't make the Pula Anvil bad, but it does have some things from the get-go that kind of go anti of what I prefer. Now, if we look at some other ones, like this was released quite recently. Pretty much I got these on the exact same day. If you guys want to check out my review for the Meyer Audio CKLVX D62. Yeah, that's a beast to say. But you'll notice a few things about these, like a little bit better air in the Meyer. You'll notice a lot more treble in the Meyer, and it kind of has a little bit more cleaner mids. I personally like the CKLVX better. I think it's a fun set. I get that into my review, but I do see people liking the Pula Anvil based off a few things. One thing to note, I wanted to go through all of the bone conductor driver IEMs that I have reviewed and talked about. The first one is the Canera Celeste Plutus Beast. And we've just normalized this around 500. And what you notice is that the Beast has a ton of bass. Its killer for me is that it lacked air and it had crazy treble for my ears, and it kind of killed it for me. I like the Pula Anvil better, and I want to say the Plutus Beast is around $60. I do think the Pula Anvil is a better set than that, and I do think people will find it nice and neutral and a solid, fun set. As we go up the bone conductor level, I mean, the next one we really have is the Baji, and the Baji is a fantastic set. A little bit better bass, like pretty much right on my target, really clean, really solid mids. I really think the Baji did a fantastic job and just has a really nice neutral clean tune. If you're on the fence of whether to spend the money, it is definitely worth it for the better price. I think it's a better IEM than the Anvil, but it's also 3 times the price, and for some people that might not be a thing. I think the Pula Anvil gets you 90% of the way there, but for those that want to spend, I do think it's a better set. Another one to look at is the Origin. Now, the Origin is a really bassy boy, and I think it has a lot better details, a lot better sense of space, a little bit less few peaks here, and better sub bass. I like the Origin. I think it's worth the money. But it's so much money that it's almost becomes like a different, style of person. Like if you're looking for a chill set, the Anvil I think is a fine set. And there's a lot of FR issues or things about both of these that are the same in that upper mid treble region. So it's kind of, it's something to note, something to think about. Now, the last one of the bone conductors I wanted to show you is the AME Musa. You'll notice they have a lot of these similar trends, but the thing about the Musa is the Musa has, they have a similar trend, but there's just way less bass. There's a tonality and a presence and a clarity about the Musa that doesn't exist in the Pula. I think it's interesting how close they are. Like, let's normalize this a little better. But you can just tell how much more energy that is. And so the Anvil has kind of a good tuning. It's fun. It's unique. But I think it's nice to have that bass shelf in a set like this. It kind of, when you're trying to get bass from an IEM, you don't have to dial it up as much. And so essentially what you would do is I would get a lot more higher energy rather than the bass that I so crave. And so the tuning of the AME Musa is better and has better drivers, but this is also like a $4,000, $500 IEM. And if you look, there's a lot of similar trends. They both have some similar drivers. The Anvil looks like a real bargain. The next one I want to show you is the Kiwi Ears 4. Now, there's a lot of similar trends in these, but again, we get back to this 5 to 6K region. We get back to a little bit better bass, even on the Kiwi Ears 4, which I don't really consider a bassy set. And its tonality, again, having that extra layer of bass, that little bit less, that hissy energy works a lot better for me. And I think it achieves a little bit more of a better, more relaxed set that's easier on my ears to listen to. The next one I want to show you is the AFU Performer 7. I really like the Performer 7. It has better bass, it has better mids, better treble. It's just a really solid set. And these are not too far apart in price, but for me, the details and air, the stuff off the graph is just really strong in the P7. Whereas with the Pula Anvil, I feel like there's a sense sometimes. There's a reason I wanted to talk about bone conductor drivers is I feel like sometimes the bone conductor drivers just aren't 100% there yet. They become almost a little bit of a toy, almost more of like a specialist that you want in a rotation rather than an all-around kind of a set. So that's kind of my take on the bone conductor drivers at this time. I haven't really experienced any of these guys that really have that great extension and detail that I would want to have. And, that upper air and treble and that crispiness is there on the P7, which is not that much more. So if that's what you're looking for, not just a fun set that can kind of get sort of, have this bone conductor driver, I kind of would go over the P7 over it, but I could see the appeal of the Anvil. This, I wanted to show this. I talked about there's a sense in the Pula shell that it has a little bit of resonating that's very similar to the EA1000. The EA1000 has a passive dynamic driver that basically kind of ping pongs things around. I think the Pula Anvil kind of has that same thing, and I wanted to note. Oftentimes, I will also talk about EQ, and I've tried this EQ on the Pula Anvil, and I feel like it mucked up some things and it made some things better. I think some IEMs will take to, they'll take EQ better than others, and I kind of don't think the Pula Anvil takes EQ as good of other things, which, you're free to experiment more with it, but just in my 2 to 3 hours worth of EQing, what I ended up doing is just getting rid of this last shelf, like right here. And so this matched up in the upper air, and that seemed to work pretty well, this EQ right here. And so that I basically EQ'd my target and just removed the last filter. And I felt like that helped out a lot and helped it kind of tame some of that upper air and treble that made it sound a bit better to me, but it wasn't an absolute perfect, like, switch for switch on experience that I've had with many other IEMs when I try EQ, and that's just something to note from my testing. Okay, let's rank the Pula Anvil up, and one of the reasons I like my ranking system is I can detail and articulate why things get the rating they get. I'm giving this an 8.0 on tone, but part of that's because I feel like the bass is a little bit insufficient. I feel like the mids aren't really that great. Like a lot of IEMs will hit either really great mids or really great bass, and they help carry it, but this set doesn't really have that. It's carried by good detail and air, and so it's kind of an interesting thing. It doesn't image very well. It kind of has this sense of like it's a really great staging IEM. Like the Audio Origin has a really great sense of staging, but it's imaging, like it's detail, it's micro details and kind of resolution and imaging isn't that great. It has decent note weight when it hits, but it's just kind of has a few faults before I want to give it a full bomb blasted recommendation. I think there's some minor issues with it to my ear, but at the same time, I think it has some awesome things as well. The Pula Anvil, it's a solid set with really great characteristics. It's beautiful, great packaging, wonderful case, fantastic cable, and great tip selection. There's not a lot of bone conductors in this price range. This is a really fun set that I like, I enjoy, but I don't think it's one of those sets that gets what I call a full bomb blasted recommendation. It gets kind of a middling recommendation, one of those things that I would recommend you to maybe demo it first or try it from a friend. You might really like it, and your experience might be different than mine. I like this set and I enjoy listening to it, but there are, when I get my audiophile glasses on and really start examining it and A/B'ing it versus other sets, there's a few things about this set that I find to be a little bit concerning for other people that like the tunings that I like. But what I do also want to say is that the driver config, the beautiful packaging, the nice open sound and air and details that you can get in those upper frequencies is really quite nice, and this could be a great bargain for some people. I encourage you to listen to other reviewers and see what they think, but I'm giving this just a solid, cautious recommendation. And I think that's it for my video. I enjoyed my time testing this IEM, and I think it's absolutely lovely. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys have a great day. You're still here. It's over. Go home. Go watch another IEM video. It's done. That's the entire video. What more do you want?